We're bringing this meeting to order.
Sounds good.
We're in the city chambers. It is 1:01 p.m. And if you can turn off your phones, we have at the desk here, we have, I don't have a cheat sheet.
It's right here.
Oh, I know that. City Clerk Katie Pito, City Commissioner Jill Luke, Vice Mayor Debbie McDowell, myself, Mayor Hanks, Commissioner Pete Emmerich. I have Michael Golden, who is our Assistant City Attorney, and our City Manager, Mr. Lear. And we're going to get this thing started. Mr. Lear.
How about a pledge?
Oh, yeah, why don't we do that? A very line item guy. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Mr. Lear.
Thank you, Mayor. Today we're here for the Deputy City Clerk interviews. And
Give an approval of the agenda first, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I need a cheat sheet. We have a motion by the Vice Mayor to approve the agenda with a second by Commissioner Luke. Let's take a vote.
I'm sorry.
Katie's your cheat sheet today.
Oh, hold on.
Somebody didn't vote or
Well,
something?
apparently,
I'm not getting it.
yeah, apparently I got to join or something here.
I joined.
Okay, I'm there.
I just refreshed, nothing.
Is Commissioner
Oh, I did
Carazone
before.
coming?
Okay, I'm good.
Say something on the record.
You may want to announce that she's not here then.
That was approved 4-0 with Commissioner Carasone is not here today, or she may be on her way. I don't know. I have not heard, so. No?
She will not be here today.
Okay, she will not be here today. Thank you. Mr. Lear. Third time's charm.
deja vu? No. All right, now today we're here to do the Deputy City Clerk interviews. Our Human Resources Department will walk you all through this. So I'm going to turn it over to Deborah to give you a little opening, and then we'll start with the 4 interviews.
For the record, Deborah Hope, Human Resources Manager. Ms. Pito and I did face-to-face interviews with several candidates, and we narrowed it down for you for the top 4. They will all be live interviews here today. So we asked you all to prepare some questions ahead of time, and you should be able to get through 4 questions, being that one of our commissioners is missing. You can ask additional questions if we have time. We do have a time certain end for this meeting, so we do want to try to keep it at 30 minutes for the interviews. If you do ask additional questions, we just ask that you ask the same additional question of the other candidates after. Feel free to ask follow-up questions if you are asking a question and there's questions that are spurred on by that question, you can feel free to do that. So our first candidate is Heather Taylor, and Ms. McDade is going to go get her at this time.
Are all 4 candidates here right now?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's like a game show. We've kept them off in another room with headphones on. Hear the previous answers.
Good afternoon, Ms. Taylor.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, wonderful. Well, I guess we're going to get started. We'll start with some questions. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask? Go ahead and hit your little question button and we'll get started there. Speaker button. You want to
Want me to start?
go ahead?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I am Vice Mayor Debbie McDowell. and
Are we
thank you.
going to let them have a little bit of intro time before we ask questions?
Would you like to?
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah.
Let's do that.
It'd be good for her to be able to introduce herself, and then we ask.
Wonderful.
Okay.
I need this whole team up here.
Okay, my name is Heather Taylor. I am currently the Assistant City Clerk at the City of Venice. I've been with the clerk's office since 2014. I started as a temp as a recording secretary 1. Due to job vacancies, I was able to move up to recording secretary 2 and then to the assistant city clerk position within about a year. I have obtained my CMC certifications and I'm working towards my MMC. Prior to moving down here to Florida, I moved in 2013. I was active duty Army for 15 years. I switched over to the reserves when I moved down here, and I've been with them for 5.5 years, and I'm retiring this month. On my free time, I just spend time with my kids and friends. And that's
Very
Well,
good.
thank you for your
Thank you.
service to our
Thank you.
country. Appreciate that.
Vice Mayor.
Okay. I only have 3 questions for you
Okay.
today. So the first one is, could you please tell me something about a specific situation where you may have been challenged with fairness or ethical situation, and how did you resolve that situation?
okay. I would say in the Army, we have urinalysis regularly, and I had a lower enlisted, I was challenged to be the observer for the urinalysis, and I had a lower enlisted soldier come to me and ask me if she could provide a sample for her supervisor. Obviously, I told her no. Yes, this does happen. I told her no, and I thought that would be the end of it. However, when it came to the supervisor's time to provide her sample, she was doing a lot of things, like she'd have her back towards me. I heard a crinkling noise and looked like she put something in her pocket. So at the end, we have to sign off on a form saying that we've observed that that is indeed her sample. And at that time, I was, challenged with, because it was, a strong accusation to make on somebody, and it could potentially ruin her military career. But I thought about it, and she put her soldier in that situation also to ruin her career. So I went and I reported it to my commander, and they did have to retest her, and she tested positive, and she was chaptered out of the military. But
Drug tests. Yeah, that would be a very hard situation to be
Yes.
in. Thank you for sharing that. What are you looking for from the city of Northport being your employer?
Just to learn more. When I started with the city clerk's office in Venice, I honestly had no idea what a city clerk was. So it was just a temp position, but I've learned a lot over the years, and I enjoy taking minutes. Our assistant city clerk position does not do minutes. Our recording secretary does unless she's out, and it's something that I enjoy. So just, and Northport is younger, and they just seem to have more going on, and I'd like to be a part of that. So.
Please tell us something unique about yourself.
I've deployed to Afghanistan, and while I was over there, just seeing how differently people live when they're less privileged than we are over here, that's opened my eyes to just to be more appreciative of things, but also now I enjoy going to other places where people are less privileged and seeing and helping.
Thank you again for your service and your tour of duty.
Thank you.
Commissioner Luke.
All right, first one, hello, to start with. How have you kept employees informed of what's going on in the organization? And the second part is, what is the worst communication problem that you have experienced?
I believe as soon as information is put out, you should pass it down to whoever needs that information in a timely manner, whether it's by phone call, text, email, obviously not text when it's city business, but I'm referring to like military. My worst, I would say, is with the military. You would, we get training schedules for our drill weekends, and they'll get them in advance. You can see the training schedule in the email when they received it, and then we tend to not receive it until the day or two before.
You? Some people consider themselves to be big picture people, and others are detailed. Which are you?
I am
And give an
detailed.
You're
I'm
detailed.
very detailed, yes.
And can you give an example of a time when you displayed that detailed work?
I'm very procedural, so I like to have the beginning to the end of everything. So I like to have it written down. These are the steps of how this gets done, and then just know the time frame of what it needs to get done.
Work toward that end?
Yes.
All right, last one. Tell us about a time when you built rapport quickly with someone under difficult conditions.
I honestly do not think I have an example of that. I just in meeting all people, I genuinely take the approach that everybody comes from a different place and everybody can get along and work towards the same goal.
I would imagine the military experience helped with
Yes.
learning that.
Yes.
Because I expected a difficult condition to come from military experience.
You're all together, you have no choice. Work it out.
All right, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
That's my 3.
Commissioner Emmerich?
Again, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I've only got 3 questions for you myself. Give us an example of when you worked the hardest and felt the greatest sense of achievement.
I would say getting my associate's degree. I was a single mom for a very long time, and it was something that I had to slowly work towards. I had to sacrifice, my time doing other things to be able to focus on that, and I was very happy when I accomplished that.
I would imagine.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Describe a highly stressful work situation you have been in, and how did you handle it?
I tend to not stress work very often. I would have to say that I go back to the military a lot because I've been in there so long, but especially in the reserves, it's a lot different. The soldiers are very disgruntled, so your weekend could feel like a month when they're, disgruntled like that. And we had an old first sergeant who always said, hunt the good. So just enforcing that with the soldiers that are under you and trying to give them reason to be in a good mood and to, you can still have fun and get the mission accomplished, even if you want to be somewhere else at that time.
Absolutely. I was
Yes.
prior military,
Yes.
and I fully understand. I fully understand that. All right, this is my last one. Tell us about a time you volunteered to help out a coworker or take on a new responsibility without being asked.
Okay, this year, our holiday party at the City of Venice is actually today. I'm missing it to be here. But I took on, yes, I took on heading the holiday party to see if we could bring something new into the city and make it a little more fun. So we did the door decoration contest and had a whole bunch of contests and stuff that we were doing. And I got a little committee together and we all brainstormed and came up with prizes. And, we have the biggest turnout this year than we've had since I started there.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Can you give me a couple of examples you've done in your previous job that demonstrate your willingness to work hard?
I do not like to procrastinate at all. So typically when I take minutes at any of our meetings, I have them done the next day, or I do not feel good about myself. I just like everything to be done as soon as I can get it done, and that goes with everything that I do at my job in the City of Venice. And just try and do it ahead of time. My notices, they're already done waiting to be mailed out, and just like to have everything done in advance so that when priorities change, if you can't do something that day, it's not going to put it behind.
Okay. Obviously, in everything we do in life, we try to alleviate many risks, right? However, that does not always mean that we don't have risk within the things we do. So can you give me an example of when you took a risk to achieve a goal and what was the outcome?
Okay. this job interview, I feel that I took a risk applying for this job position. Actually, my supervisor she knew of the position being opening, and I told her that I was going to apply if it did come open. And at first, when she asked me if I heard back from the city of Northport, I said no, because I didn't know how to approach it. Within maybe 5-10 minutes, I went back to her and said, hey, look, I was not honest with you. I do have an interview. And she's been supportive for it. And and I love my job at Venice. So it was just hard approaching her with, that I might be potentially going somewhere else.
Sure, but you handled the hard situation. You came back and you were honest.
Yes.
Can you tell a time of when you built rapport with someone quickly under a difficult condition? Building rapport, because in your position, you're going to be doing a lot of that. Well,
That's the same
especially
question.
Same question.
oh, was it?
Yes.
Oh, I wasn't listening. Okay. Well, here, let me ask you one more. What are the most significant changes you brought about in your organization?
When I first got to the city Legistar, which I believe y'all use for your agendas and minutes, was designed that city council had their own template and all of the advisory boards had a joint template. Once I started and I learned that all the boards wanted their agendas different ways, audience participation in the beginning for one and the end for another, I did my research and learned how to set up those workflows myself. So now all of the boards have their own templates. So when their agenda is generated, it pulls up how they like their agenda to be.
Thank you.
Save time and work.
We have any follow-up questions? Vice Mayor, do you have a follow-up question?
I
we
can't
have
think
time
of
for
any.
that.
I'm kind of reluctant to go any further in case we run out of time with the other applicants.
Right, well, that's what I was
So-
asking, because we still have about 12 minutes.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know if
I
you had
don't.
one more.
Nope, I sure
Commissioner
don't.
Lewis,
Thank
do
you,
you have
though.
one more you'd like to ask?
We have to ask all the rest of them too. Because you're in, and I will have to change this a little up for the next ones, because you're already in the position of deputy clerk, what is it you enjoy about that job?
As far as minutes and attending the meetings, I like that you're always learning something new about the city. On the back end of it, in the office work that I do, also I believe that, typing the ordinances and resolutions, you're learning so much more that you wouldn't know if you weren't doing that. I like dealing with our council members and just the, customer service. I just enjoy people.
Mr. Emmett, you have
I'm
any
good,
follow-up?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, well, I'm good too. Thank you very much. I'll turn this back over to the city manager.
Make a quick
Oh, and thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
comment.
Yeah,
Just
sure.
because this is a really short interview, don't take that as a negative. We have to ask the same questions of everybody. So thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you missing your party too,
It's
that you
okay.
worked so hard for.
They're saving me a plate.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
City manager?
Tell Bob and Mitzi.
Thank you also, Vice
tell
Mayor.
Bob
I was
and
going to make sure
Mitzi
that she
hello.
knew that. I try to tell applicants the same thing, that length of the interview for me does not dictate whether it went well or poor, but the commissioners were given the instructions to ask the same questions to everybody. Obviously, the amount of time takes is variable based on the length of an answer sometimes,
I talk fast when I'm.
so.
You did very well, you did very well.
Thank you
All right,
very much.
thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Merry Christmas to you.
Christmas.
Nice meeting you, thank you.
Beat you up between meetings?
Oh, yes. Forgot to take it.
Did she have that on the last time?
I did not.
You are just quick draw, so what,
I
the
know.
next time you're gonna be on crutches? Is this what we're doing in between meeting of
But
applicants?
she does have it decorated for Christmas.
I do.
Yes.
There is a rumor that there's still a roller thing for people that have like a hurt foot or something floating around City Hall somewhere.
Really?
We're not sure.
So we built in 15 minutes in between interviews for you to be able to have discussion. You can either discuss the candidates in between or wait until the end. Obviously, you would not make a decision until the end, but if there's anything you want to discuss about the candidate, you have time to do that. Because our next interview is not until quarter of, but it's an internal candidate. We can also go and see if he's ready.
I would be happy with that if she's ready.
If she's
And I would
ready, yeah,
assume
we'll
wait
do
until
that.
the end to really
Yeah,
have our
I-
discussion.
I'm the same way on that,
Okay,
yes.
we will do that.
Discussing until after I hear.
Individually, let's see the package. That's just my opinion, all four.
Hi, chiefs.
So they
Yes.
both wave.
Both our chiefs are in the back there. Chief Titus and Chief Garrison.
Is this still being recorded?
Sort of reminds me of when I went to Busch Gardens one time, you know, they're behind the glass. For our safety.
My goodness.
Recording while we're waiting so that there's not dead air.
All right, I guess we can take a break until the next person,
How long?
until she gets in here.
5, 10 minutes, do you have to state it?
Yes.
Okay. We're gonna take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
We are back. We are back, and we get all the stuff together here. We have Ms. Clifford here. Ms. Rebecca Clifford, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We are going to begin with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
A little bit
For a
about
few
me.
minutes, yes, ma'am.
I am stored in New to Florida and Northport. Been here about 3 years now in Northport. I have 2 kids. I currently work in the city clerk's department. Prior to that, I had a career in public safety, 911 dispatcher for several years, up north in Indiana. Migrated down here, got some family down here. My grandmother, 91 years old, very proud of that, lives down here, so we're just seeing what Florida's all about. Tickle in my throat.
All right. Would you like some water?
No, I'm good.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we're going to get to the questioning. We'll start again with Vice Mayor.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
And being here for the interview. Appreciate that. So I only have 3 questions for you. My first question is, could you please tell me something about a specific situation where you may have been challenged with fairness or an ethical issue, and how did you resolve the situation?
I guess getting challenged, that's a lot. Happens a lot during one's career. I'm going to pull from my 911 days. I worked 911 for several years, so that's my main experience. Working as, excuse me, shift supervisor, and there was an incident that occurred on shift of somewhat sexual nature, and being the shift supervisor, I of course had to take it to my higher ups, who in turn told me I had to handle it because it happened on my shift. And I did not feel that that was appropriate for the position I was in, and the incident that occurred. However, being in the lower position, I handled it the way I could. I documented everything, spoke to the individual involved, and discussed the inappropriateness of the situation, and that I was documenting it. I had them sign the documentation, and then I presented it to my boss. So that was quite challenging.
I bet. What are you looking for as an employer, the city being the employer? What are you looking for out of the city being your employer?
I am looking for my employer to be invested in me. I feel the kind of person I am is I invest myself in my position. It doesn't matter what job I hold. I am there to do a job. I try to learn as much as I can about the position and do as much as I can, even beyond what my position may require. And I feel that my employer ought to then invest in me. Trainings, continued education, a dispatch up north. I know budgets were very, very tight, and dispatch was always the last one to be thought of. And it was very hard to get continued education or to even go to meetings and be with other dispatchers who are going through the same thing. So I'm really looking for an employer to invest in me, because I really am ready to invest in this career. We've moved here, my kids are getting settled here, and I want to stay. And so I'm looking to really get into and be a part of. And I want people to realize that. I know I've had many jobs where people have said, oh, I wish you didn't go, we miss you, everything's falling apart. And I just wish that someone would have said before I left, should have seen my potential and saw what I did and kept me instead of letting me go. So don't let me go.
Could you please tell us something unique about yourself?
Well, I'm not particularly talented in anything. I can't sing, just ask my daughter. I think one unique thing I can bring to the table is my work ethic. I find that very lacking in today's society, in the younger generation, even some of the older generation, I would have to say. But my work ethic has always been strong. I've always been taught you get to work, you do your job, and you complete your job to the best of your ability. And that's what I try to do. One thing that is very hard for me at the end of the day is, ding, it's 5 o'clock, get out. Because it's always been, well, I need to finish this one thing or complete something before I just call it a day. And so having an office job is a little different than, okay, close it, it'll be there tomorrow. Because in dispatch, it wouldn't be there tomorrow. You had to do it right now. So I bring a very strong work ethic, I think, and I think that's pretty unique today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is it all? Okay, Commissioner Luke.
All right, this is two parts. This question is two parts. How have you kept employees informed of what is going on in the organization, whether it's here or your dispatch years? And then what is the worst communication problem that you've experienced?
I'm going to pull from my dispatch days again. When I was the training coordinator, one of the things I did to keep everybody informed, we have a lot of policies and procedures that have to be followed. However, it's not always black and white. So a lot of times I created a newsletter for our dispatch center and put in it questions and answers to some of those gray areas that would come up and how to handle situations. I think communication is definitely lacking in a lot of organizations. I have experienced that as well. I think one of the biggest downfalls I see is the boss will talk to somebody and to make a change or to implement something or do something and just expect that person gets the word out instead of the follow through. And there's been a lot of follow through that is not done. Therefore, the last person on the totem pole says, well, I didn't know that. Well, you should have known that. I told so-and-so a week ago. So I have experienced that many times.
Would that be the worst communication problem then, is just?
I think so. I think
not filtering down to
not
who needs the
filtering down,
info.
correct.
All right, second question. Some people consider themselves to be big picture people and others are detail orientated. Which are you? And give an example, please.
I would say I am a mixture of both. I always come into a task, of course you want to know, you get honed in on the details of that one task, but in my dispatch career, I mean, we are taught, and I had to teach people, you can't focus on that one call. You have to see the city as a whole. There's a lot going on out there. So I have learned to look at the big picture as well as filter through the details to figure out, prioritize what's important, what can be held, that kind of thing. And I think I do that with almost every career I step into. This is your role, okay. This is how you get started. Okay, but what does my organization do as a whole? And how do I fit in with assisting that person? Or what does that person have to do with my role in this organization? So I think I see both the big picture and the details.
Final question at this go around. Tell us about a time when you built rapport quickly with someone under a difficult situation or difficult conditions.
I would have to say there was a time in my dispatch career, earlier days, when we were trying to bridge the gap between dispatch and police, and they would host a lot of, they would do, for lack of a better word, extracurricular activities they would have to be involved in for higher security purposes or something like that. And it was very hard to get them to understand that dispatch could play a role in assisting them with these projects. Having a dedicated dispatcher for just that incident, or going out in the mobile command unit and working with them, and there was a lot of resistance, and it started with having to work with, as just a dispatcher and the officers coming in, just kind of building that rapport and talking to them about different things we could do, but then going to the higher ups and with the plan and with the idea of what we could actually provide them in support as our role as dispatchers. I think that was one of the hardest gaps to bridge there. But eventually, I mean, we were invited out. I've been in the mobile command several times on different projects. So we built the trust and the rapport that was needed.
Great. Thank you, Becca.
Mr. Emrich.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Thank you for being here
Well,
today.
thank you.
I have 3 questions for you. First one is, give us an example of when you worked the hardest and felt the greatest sense of achievement.
Lots of those different incidences. Worked the hardest. I think when I was a dispatcher, you get very much in the role of I'm just here to dispatch, and then on my downtime I can chat or read a book or wait for the next call. And I've never been just a sit and wait for something to happen. If there's something to do, I want to do it, which means, okay, I'm going to go straighten those books and I'm going to go do that. Well, one of the things that I did was I went through our files and found that they were a huge mess, and we deal with criminal justice paperwork. I mean, we have criminal histories on people, we have entries for missing and runaway, as well as stolen vehicles, and it was just a mess because the person taking care of it wasn't taking care of it. So on my downtime, I would go in and straighten up our paperwork. And that just gave me satisfaction to know if I needed something, I could find it. Or if someone needed something, I could direct them. And it turned into someone noticing, who noticed, who heard, and eventually got me promoted. So I was quite happy about that.
Okay. Describe a highly stressful work situation you have been in and how you handled it.
Well, being a dispatcher, you can imagine I've been in lots of stressful situations. Honestly, being the dispatch, I think, would be the most stressful. These office jobs I've had since leaving the dispatch line have been pretty mild comparatively. So in dispatch, there's always that incident that starts at 0 and ends up 100 miles an hour, and you can't think straight. And it's just a matter of pulling out of the recesses of your mind all of that training that you've had, the bookwork that outlines your policies and how you're supposed to handle things, as well as keeping the calm demeanor. I think that's very hard to stay calm in those situations, and that is one strength I do have, is people could be yelling and screaming and, okay, I'm calm and I'm going to be the face and the voice in the room, So I have gone through those situations, pursuits, shootings, that type of thing. And it's a matter of taking control of the situation, your radio, the paperwork. Your partners are busy because the phones are now ringing off the hook. So it's picking up that slack, and you know when to pick it up if you can. Getting some of your own, doing some of the things that you need that usually they would take care of, but now they're busy, so you start stepping up to do that. And feel like I'm way off track of your question.
I think you did fine.
Thank you.
But the last question I have, you've already touched on a few times, so I'm going to give it to you anyways. And it says, tell us about a time you volunteered to help out a coworker or take on a new responsibility without being asked.
I I try to do that quite frequently just because I want to know what's going, I want to know how to do things. In my last job, I worked at the fire marshal's office for Sarasota County, and we were shorthanded inspectors as well as shorthanded fire marshal. As he had stepped down, we had an interim, and there was a lot going on, and it was stepping up to, we're in the process of our, I'm trying to think of what her title was, community relations. She did events for the county. She was also being promoted to a new position, so I took over the scheduling of conference rooms. I mean, just different things that I stepped up. I can do that. You don't need to stress out about it. Show me what you need done and I can do that. Scheduling of conference rooms, doing the billing for our false fire alarms, just different things that everybody was trying to scramble to do because we were shorthanded. If the phone would ring and someone needed information on a smoke detector, instead of bothering an inspector who is out doing their job in the field, I gathered that information and I was able to answer those questions. So they wouldn't be bothered with that. So I guess that's different ways that I would reach out and help and continue to do, because just the kind of person I am.
Thank you, that's all I had.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Clifford. Can you give me 2 examples of things you've done in your previous jobs that demonstrate your willingness to work hard?
Let's see, my willingness to work hard. I've always been willing to work hard. I know in dispatch there were several occasions when I'd be working a 12-hour shift and someone would call if we'd be shorthanded, and it was no question, of course, I'll always stay, we have to cover. So now I'm working 16 hours. Or when I became the training coordinator, one of the things was community outreach. A lot of people don't know when or to call 911 or why to call 911. So I started with working with the police department and doing community outreach for teaching 911 education, as well as I started a 911 for Kids program with our neighboring 911 dispatch county. And together we came up with a little program. We would go out to schools and teach 911 education for kids and to their daycare centers. My last job, as I said, many projects started falling apart because we were shorthanded, and I would step up and grab hold. So I think I don't have any.
All right. Throughout our lives, we always try to alleviate as much risk as possible. But in all aspects of life, there are risks. We just try to alleviate as much of it as possible. Can you give me an example of when you took a risk to achieve a goal and what the outcome was?
Well, in our 911 for Kids program, it was just an idea I'd been toying with, and at my kids' daycare, they were having a field day type event where they were inviting the police department and the fire department with their smokehouse and this and that, and I stepped up and said, well, how about we come and do a 911 for Kids program? And I failed to get permission for that first. So that was a little risky, and one that I had to go and sell because it was going to be a volunteer type thing, and it's nothing we had budgeted for. So it was on me to sell it to my boss, make sure I got final permission, and then find the resources and the assistants to go and do this program.
What are the most significant changes you've brought about in your organization?
I think one of the changes, especially with dispatch, was definitely the organization. We had, very disjointed and disorganized between the dispatchers and then the roles that we had. We had someone who would take care of our records for dispatch, and we had someone who would take care of training, like CPR, getting us, make sure we get certified for that. But it was all disjointed and people weren't following through. So, can you repeat your question? I am so sorry.
What are the most significant changes you brought about in your organization?
Thank you. I know I was going somewhere with my talk. So when I took over as training coordinator, it sort of then encompassed the IDEX coordinator and continued education. So we got our files in order. We had at one point been placed on probation from the Indiana Department of Data that runs our criminal computer, the Indiana State. We've been on probation for some violations, so we got our files in order and our records retention in order. And the training program became outlined. I had written policies and SOPs to get our new trainees on board, as well as continued education, and make sure all of our current dispatchers were up to date. So I think it was a pretty positive experience.
Wonderful. We have just enough time for one follow-up question, if you have one. Commissioner Luke?
What do you think you would enjoy or like about the deputy clerk position?
I think what I like is the different aspects of the position. First, you see the deputy clerk, oh, she sits in on a meetings and takes minutes, but then you realize behind the scenes, there's the records requests and the archiving and all the different facets that go into it, which I want to know because I want to learn the organization. So I'm very excited about that, even starting from where I'm at now and just the different things that I've learned currently, working on a project to implement some software for our public records. There's new software for our scanning and archiving of our documents, so I'm very excited about it.
Mr. Rich, you have a follow-up?
No, sir.
I actually had one, but you answered it in one of these other questions, so I thank you very much. And as we spoke with you, yep.
Before we let her go, I just wanted to remind her that, kind of like I did the last.
That's what I was about to do, but go ahead.
If you want to
No,
go.
Go ahead. Get after it.
All right. I just wanted to let you know that we have to ask the same questions of every one of the candidates. And by no means does a short interview dictate if you did good or you did bad. We just have to ask the same exact questions. So I wanted to say thank you for coming and interviewing with us and wish you well.
Thank you.
May I make a comment? The last question that the mayor asked about a significant change in an organization, there is no person in the clerk's office that did not say Becca, Becca, Becca when those minutes were caught up. So that was a significant change to me, and I thank you for your part in doing that.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
All right, well, thank you. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you. Have a wonderful evening.
Mr. Fitzgerald, if he's available.
Yep. Okay, we'll take 5 and see if he's available. We'll take a 5-minute break. Okay. Mr. Fitzgerald, so good to see you.
Morning, Mayor.
Appreciate you coming up here a little short notice. We're running through a little quicker.
No problem.
Nothing indicative of anything, just we just like to keep things rolling. So, Mr. Fitzgerald, we appreciate you for coming. If you wouldn't mind just opening up with telling us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Norman Fitzgerald. I go by Rick. I was the Support Services Bureau Commander over at the Police Department for the last couple of years. With the change now, I'm the Records Manager. And so I've been with the department almost 6 years now. I really enjoy my job here, and I really like working for the city. I've been married going on 30 years in February. It's amazing she's put up with me that long, but she has. We have 2 boys, and actually in 2 days I'm going to be a grandfather for the first time.
Wow, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a proud achievement.
Well, I didn't have much to do with it, but.
Still a proud achievement for you.
Well, Vice Mayor, we'll let you get started.
All right, welcome. Thank you
you.
for coming. I just have 3 questions for you.
Okay.
The first question is, could you please tell me something about a specific situation where you may have been challenged with fairness or an ethical issue, and how did you resolve the situation?
Frankly, I don't think that's really ever come up in my life. I mean, I don't think I've ever had I try to base my decisions on, is this the right thing anyways? So I don't think I've ever had a real challenge, like, was there money sitting out that, I thought, well, I won't know, if I take that, nobody will notice or anything like that. I don't think I've really ever run into that.
Did you ever, let me see if I could restate it.
Okay.
Not necessarily involving you,
Right?
but where maybe somebody else put you in a challenging situation that you had to deal with, maybe an ethical issue or a challenging issue where you had to handle that situation?
Yes, ma'am, definitely. I had a individual that used to work for me that was doing some things that we could not have. So I did the proper things. I went through the proper channels, initiated an internal affairs action, and then she ultimately decided to terminate her employment with us.
Thank you.
You're
I'm
welcome.
glad I restated it. What are you looking for in an employer? I know you work for the city, but what are you looking for from your employer?
I think the one thing, my primary thing is I look for an employer that trusts me to do what is right and within the confines of my job description. I think that's my primary thing.
Please tell us something unique about yourself besides being an almost new grandpa.
Oh, geez, something unique about me. I don't know that I really have anything that's unique about me.
He speaks another language.
I do. I speak fluent Dutch. I speak, read, and write it. So there's only about 20 million people, give or take, on the planet that actually speak Dutch. Reason for that is my wife is from the Netherlands, so I learned it from her.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Luke.
I'm sorry. You look very nice today, too,
Thank you, ma'am.
Rick. How have you kept employees informed of what's going on in an organization? Doesn't have to be this one, but during your history. And then part 2 to that, what is the worst communication problem that you have experienced?
Communication is very important to me. I think folks work better if they know what's going on. So in my current job, as soon as I hear something from the chief or the deputy chief, I make sure that I put that out to the supervisors so that they know exactly what's going on at all times. Part 2 of your question, the worst instance of that I ever had is I had a commander at one of my assignments who would not tell us anything ever. So It was at the point where I was selected for promotion and had to hear about it from somebody else because he didn't come and talk to us, so.
Yeah, that's different, yeah. Okay, question number 2. Some people consider themselves to be big picture people and others are detail oriented. Which are you? And can you give an example of when you've displayed that?
I would say I'm very much more detailed than big picture. One of the things I do at the department is I look a lot at the stats and things like that. So that's a time that I'm looking at these things. So I think you have to know, do you have enough nuts and bolts and things like that in order to form the big picture, the old, for want of a horseshoe nail, that the war was lost. So I think you have to have details in order to have a big picture thing.
Great, thank you. All right, my last question this go around is, tell us about a time when you built a rapport quickly with someone under a difficult condition. The first example that really jumps to mind is when I was in Afghanistan. I was there as not necessarily as an American, I was there as a NATO asset, so I worked with a lot of people from different countries. And because of my language skills, I had a Dutch roommate. So and his English wasn't that great, so he was very worried about things that went on. So we had a rocket attack, and he wasn't quite sure what was going on. So, I helped him through that, and that really, he immediately took to trusting me after that, and we kind of looked out for each other after that. That would be difficult
Yes,
condition. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Emmerich.
Good afternoon.
Sir?
Give us an example of when you worked the hardest and felt the greatest sense of achievement.
I would say it goes back again to my deployment in Afghanistan. We were working 16-hour days, and what we did there is we were the air element for the regional operations center. So whenever folks were on the ground and they came in contact with the enemy and they needed air support, ultimately it would get back to us. Now I was their admin support, so I was making sure that all the people that were actually directing aircraft to the troops on the ground had everything that they need. So it was a really, really rewarding experience, but it was some really, really hard work.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
And for yours, sir.
Thank you, sir. Describe a highly stressful work situation you have been in and how you handled it.
Well, aside from the one I just mentioned, here recently at the department, and I touched on it briefly with the Vice Mayor's question, that same person was extremely disgruntled and was just really toxic to be around, and it was affecting the morale of the other people in the unit. So what I tried to do is, initially try to talk to the person, try to get them to see, that there's not just their way, that there are other people that have opinions on the way things should be run. And ultimately, it didn't work out. We gave it our best try, but it didn't work out.
Okay. This is my last question. Tell us about a time you volunteered to help out a coworker or take on a new responsibility without being asked.
I don't know that I have a specific instance that I can think of, sir. I tend to be really open for anything. If anybody needs help, I just try to jump in. I can't think of a specific instance immediately. No, unfortunately, I can't think of one immediately. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's quite all right. That probably means that you've done it quite a bit.
I try, let me put it that way.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
This will probably blend a little bit with some of the questions, but can you give me 2 examples of things you've done either in your current position or in your previous positions that demonstrate your work ethic?
Well, there have been several that I mentioned. I'm willing to do what's necessary to get things done. I don't mind staying late. I don't mind coming in early for things. I think it's important to, if if your employer has that for you and is willing to pay you, for you to pay attention to things, then you should do that. You should be willing to go the extra mile for them if they're willing to go the extra mile for you. And I've always felt that here in the city, especially in the department.
Life's full of risks. We always try to alleviate those risks
Right.
the best possible. You understand it as well as most, being in the military. But can you give me an example of when you took a risk to achieve a goal and what that outcome was?
To an extent, coming here, I think applying for this job was a risk. Because, I don't want you to think that I'm disgruntled in my current job. I actually love my current job. It's just, I think maybe I applied because maybe my expertise being over in the police department with the public records there would, be usable on this side, So I think that's why I took the risk and kind of jumped in over here.
Okay, thank you. What are the most significant changes you've brought about in your organization?
I think the most important changes, maybe not the most significant necessarily, because I think they were small things, but I think for my staff, it were some of the more important things is, things like just even this month now, they can wear Christmas socks and things like that with their uniform. It's just small morale things so that, so they feel like we spend at least a third of our life here at work. So if we can do some small things to make it enjoyable, especially for folks in telecom who have a fairly hard job, fairly stressful job, I try to make sure that they had the things that would just help them out and just small things. We implemented a dispatch team of the quarter thing where the supervisors and myself would chip in for pizza for the team that got the best citizen follow-up reports. The telecom operator that had the quickest entry, they got us a business casual day, things like that I've implemented.
Wonderful. We have time for one follow-up question if we have any. Vice Mayor, do you have anything? Commissioner Luke?
Rick, what do you think you would enjoy or like about the deputy clerk position?
I think an opportunity to see things from the other side. It's the police department can sometimes be just kind of homogenous. It's just the public records and things like that we see are just, well, they're police reports. I think on this side there'll be a wider scope of things to see. There'll be other public records from other agencies, working with you all, and with Katie, and I think it would expose me more to kind of how the city itself runs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Emmett?
No, sir.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming out and interviewing. Just so you know, just because the interview seems kind of short, don't take that to heart. Don't take it anyway. We have to ask the same questions of everybody.
No problem.
So having a short interview or a long interview doesn't weigh on anything. I just wanted you to leave here and go, man, I was only here 10 minutes. It doesn't mean anything.
I don't say a whole lot anyway, so for me to have had a long interview, I would have thought, oh no, what did I do?
You did fine. You did fine.
I appreciate y'all speaking to me today and taking the time out from your busy schedules.
Well, thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you very
We
much.
appreciate it very
Appreciate
much.
you
You have a
being
great
here.
day.
All right, and if I don't see you all, happy Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
You do as well.
Thank you. We know 2:30?
Yep, next.
Okay, then we will take a break until 2:30. Thank you. we're going to get started with our final interview with Ms. Linda Simmons. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
So good to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
As we get started, I just want to ask you to just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been a resident of Northport we've lived in this area for about 30 years. We moved here from Alabama, and I've very active in the community. I served on the Board of Commissioners for the Charlotte County Homeless Coalition, or the Board of Directors, rather, this isn't intimidating at all, by the way. Just so you know.
This is a little higher.
This is totally, yeah, this is, I'm totally at ease completely right now. And seeing myself, that's great.
Yeah. Well, just stare at yourself whenever you talk.
No,
It'll be easier.
yeah, I hate that part.
I know it.
So I'm active in the community. I've been really active with the Charlotte County Homeless Coalition. Served on the board there for a number of years. Just recently took a break from that. Very active with their other events that they have throughout the community. So that's really important to me. I like doing that. Spend time with my family and friends. So that's the personal stuff.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to start asking you a few questions, if you don't mind. All right. Vice Mayor?
It is very intimidating, and I appreciate you acknowledging that, especially for somebody who's not too familiar with how this works. So thank you. We'll try and keep it simple.
Okay.
So I just have 3 questions for you, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
So please tell me something about a specific situation where you may have had been challenged with fairness or an ethical issue, and how did you resolve this situation?
In a personal situation or in a professional situation?
I think professional or personal, whichever you think would be.
Well, on occasion, you see from my resume, I'm in the cabinet business, and it is my nature to be a straight shooter. So, and to be as transparent as I can be in any given situation. So oftentimes there are things that prohibit us from being able to deliver a product or a service in a timely manner or in the manner in which it was processed or promised by possibly one of our sales designers. And so it's a fine line to walk. You don't want to say that somebody promised you something when they shouldn't have promised you something. So ethically, I'm not going to say they shouldn't have done that, even though they shouldn't have. But it's a fine line to walk, oftentimes, to be able to get them the answer that they need without crossing that line and kind of throwing somebody under the bus, for lack of a better example. That's just a kind of common, everyday thing, to give you an example.
Thank you. What are you looking for as the city being your employer? What makes a good employer to you?
Well, I'll tell you, I worked for the Charlotte County Clerk of Court for 15 years, and that was a valuable experience for me because I loved working with the citizens of Charlotte County. During that time, the duties were routine, but it was the interaction with the public that made that job unique because it was the same type of service that we provided every single day, but it was those interactions that made it unique, and it was serving the community at large that I really liked doing. And that's what intrigues me about working for the city of Northport.
Can you tell us something unique about yourself?
Oh, good Lord. I've kind of exhibited that. I'm pretty much a what you see is what you get kind of person. I don't know that there's anything specifically unique about me other than that. I'm a straight shooting kind of person, and I relate well to people, and I don't seem to be doing that well right now, but I do normally relate well to people. And I'm at ease in most situations, and I never meet a stranger. So, for that reason, I'm serving on the board with the Homeless Coalition. That came easy to me, and public speaking normally comes easy to me, but I haven't done it for a while. So those would be unique things about me, I guess.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for the
did
questions.
good. Thank you.
Commissioner Luke.
Got 3 questions from you already?
Yes, ma'am.
I know some of the people that you've worked for.
Do you?
Just Counters and.
Do you?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Been friends with them.
Oh, yeah,
I'm sure
the
you were
Kimmonies
working
have been
in the
here.
office when
Yeah.
I first met them.
Yeah.
So my first question to you, it's in two parts.
Okay.
Have you, or how have you kept employees informed of what was going on in any of your organizations, your businesses?
Okay.
And what is the worst communication problem that you have experienced?
Okay, so for your first part, how have I kept them informed? In my current position, I literally am glued to my phone all day. It is an ongoing daily issue. I have my personal cell phone, I have my work cell phone, I have my landline. So I'm in constant communication with builders, with retail customers, with the shop, with vendors, with our purchasing agent, with the other employees, with the salespeople. So it is literally a constant thing. In addition to that, we have a database. So the program name is called Insightly, and it's like Salesforce. If you have any, so it's like a sales tracking tool, but we utilize it to track every aspect of the job. So every conversation that I have with any of those people that I mentioned goes into Insightly. So I'm on the phone. I have a Bluetooth, thank God. So I'm on the phone, literally typing notes or writing notes, and then constantly calling. So it's not uncommon for me to put in a 10-hour, 11-hour day just to be able to keep up with some of that stuff, because it is constant. As to the second part of your question, a complication.
What is the worst communication problem that you've experienced?
When I expect someone to be as good of a communicator as me, and I don't get that, I have to adjust for that. And luckily, one of the things that comes naturally to me is I'm good at relating to different people based on their personality, based on their own uniqueness, because everybody handles and processes information and different things in a different way. And so I'm usually really good at being able to do that. That is something that is frustrating for me also on a daily basis with, because we're in two different locations. The sales team is in one location physically, and we are in another location. And so we don't have that face-to-face communication, and oftentimes that communication ball gets dropped. So that's something I deal with routinely.
Thank you. Question two. Some people consider themselves to be the big picture type of person, and others are detail-orientated. Which are you, and can you give me an example of some time you've displayed that?
I'm both. Okay. And the reason that I'm both is because I see the big picture overall, but it's the details that you have to attend to in order to attain the big picture. And so for me, especially in my position now, you have to have your eye on both of those balls, because you have to know what the end result's going to be. If you have come to us and we've designed your kitchen, I have to know what that end product is supposed to look like, but I have to be able to dot all the I's and cross all the T's in order to get it to that big picture. So I'm both.
Thank you very much. Final question for this go-around. Tell us about a time when you built a rapport quickly with someone else under a difficult condition.
Every day. When you're in the cabinet business, and you looked familiar to me too not just from your position, but when I first saw you. Right. Can I ask, did we do a kitchen for you?
No, I ran Patriot Self-Storage, so we did a lot of marketing together.
Very good.
Yeah.
So when somebody's having a kitchen done, just to give you an example, that is not a life or death situation, but when it's your kitchen that's being done, it feels life or death to you. And so complications routinely arise. And we have very often sometimes if we can't deliver within a time frame that has nothing to do with any ball that we've dropped, but there are so many pieces to a puzzle like that, I still have to make the customer happy. And so routinely, I'm walking that kind of a tightrope with the customer. And so recently we had a customer that I gave this, I talked about this in one of my other interviews, that was a local builder's customer, and that builder has since gone out of business and left many of the homeowners holding the bag, and now they're working directly with us. And so they paid, but now they're having to pay again, and so it's a very ugly situation. They're very angry and very frustrated, this particular customer was, because he's paid a lot of money. He has a $70,000 kitchen. So it's a lot of money that he's out of pocket. Now he's having to pay again in order to get his work done. It is a huge, it's one of the things that I hate it and enjoy it. I hate that the situation was there, but I was able to turn him around. And I was able to make him see, without spelling it out for him, that it was of no fault through ours, but that I'm here to help, and we're going to make it better, and we're going to get this done in a timely manner, and we'll get through it together. And so he started out very angry, and I was able to get that turned around. But those are kinds of situations that I deal with routinely.
I'm sure the companies appreciate that.
Thank
All
you.
right, that is the end of my 3.
Commissioner Emmett?
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Give us an example of when you worked the hardest and felt the greatest sense of achievement.
I'll give you a personal example.
That's fine.
Okay. A personal example of that would be with the Homeless Coalition. Every year they put on an event, you may have heard of it, it's called the Mistletoe Ball. I have chaired committees for that event. It is an enormous undertaking. It takes a huge number of volunteers in order to pull that together. And I've headed up a committee for that. And I'm looking for a word that would best describe the volume of work. It is, and while working full-time. So it is a full-time job while working full-time. And we were able to raise more money than we had in previous years put together. We were well recognized, the volunteers were well recognized for it. And we were able to immediately see the benefit of those dollars that go into our community. And so that was a huge undertaking that we were immediately able to see the results of and see the lives that it impacted throughout our community. So that was hugely rewarding for me.
Thank you.
Sure.
Describe a highly stressful work situation you have been in and how you handled it. Which again, I think it goes back to the last
It would
question.
probably have, most recently, it would probably have to go back to that. To be perfectly honest, Commissioner, every day again, you wouldn't think cabinets, I joke, there's no crying in cabinets. There shouldn't be, but it is a very volatile situation, and we are at a really high peak in our volume right now, so it's really super busy. It is very stressful from day to day, and it is a very demanding, stressful position. So the example that I said to Commissioner Luke would probably be the best example I could give you of that most recently.
Oh, that's fine, and I fully understand that. My wife had to have purple cabinets in our kitchen years ago, so I felt, oh yes.
Really?
Yes, so I understand. I do understand.
Really?
That is a true story. Okay, my last question is, tell us about a time you volunteered to help out a coworker or take on a new responsibility without being asked.
Okay, let's see. Not long after I was hired, one of the things that in my position at the clerk's office that is something that I think is innate in me again, I'm able to spot potential in someone and strengths in them. And not long after I was hired at Busy Bee, the receptionist and I hit it off. She's a young girl, and I could see that she had a lot of potential. And I took it upon myself just to start training her in other areas. She was eager to learn, and I like to train, and so I took it upon myself to just meet with her. We did it after hours sometimes. We did it in between things. And she started out as a receptionist, and she's now the purchasing manager. And I don't take credit that she is in that position, but it's definitely something that we did together, and she just was she's phenomenal in it now.
Thank you.
Sure.
That's all I had for today.
Ms. Simmons?
Yes, sir.
So you've kind of answered this multiple ways, but I'm going to challenge you to think of one more way. Well, two, apparently. Give 2 examples of things you've done in your previous jobs that demonstrate your work ethic and willingness to work hard.
My work ethic or willingness to work hard. My willingness to work hard, especially in my position, and I say this pretty often, I don't think I've ever had a job in my professional life that I've worked as hard at to get it right as I work at my current job. And things naturally tend to come fairly easily to me, or I pick them up pretty quickly. And this job has so many moving parts that it's a constant challenge every day. I am challenged every single day to get it right. The ethical side of that is, again, to my transparency. I'm never going to lie to a customer. I'm never going to mislead a customer. I'm going to be honest with them. And oftentimes that's to my detriment because I'll end up taking the blame for something that really has nothing to do with me. But it's kind of a thing with me. And I tend to just be straightforward with people and tell them straight up. You know, you're not going to like what I have to say, but this is what's going to have to happen with your job, or we're going to have to do this. And unfortunately, that's just how it is. But I don't know any other way to be.
Okay.
Did that answer it at all?
Sure.
Okay.
Life's full of risks. We always try to alleviate those risks, but if you could just give me an example of when you took a risk to achieve a goal and what your outcome was.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you to repeat the question one time. I couldn't quite hear you.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Give me an example of when you took a risk to achieve a goal and what that outcome was.
I took a calculated risk when I was purchasing manager prior to being install manager. I knew what this job entailed before I took it, and it was a calculated risk as to whether or not I'd be able to pull it off. I knew the stresses because as purchasing manager, I worked really closely with the person who had my job prior to me, and so I knew the stress that would be coming my way, and I took a calculated risk as to whether or not I'd be able to do it, and I'm doing it.
Good. What are the most significant changes you've brought about in your organization?
Where I am now. As purchasing manager, we had a not so great relationship with our vendors. Things weren't turned around in a timely manner. Communication was not great. And so I made a concerted effort to improve that communication. And a lot of it was just a matter of introducing myself and putting myself in their face over the phone, and really worked to improve that communication. And as a result of that, I've left a better footprint for someone else to step into. Because I take the belief, and I've always taken the belief, that no one person is indispensable in their position. I think we all like to believe it, and I think that's an ego thing. And that's not to say we're not all of value, because we are. But I think that it's my role in any job that I'm at to make sure that the people around me and the place can still function and function well if I'm not in that chair. And so I needed to make sure that could happen in the purchasing area. And so I've done that. And then I carried that same thing over with the contractors and with the retail customers as install manager as well.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. We now have time for one more follow-up question. Vice Mayor, do you have anything?
No, I do not, Mayor. Thank you.
Commissioner Luke?
One thing.
Okay.
What do you think you would like or enjoy about the deputy clerk position?
You know, when I was at the clerk of court, I loved the structure of it. Everything that we did there, and I pretty much grew up there. When I was 24, I think, or 25 is when I was hired at the clerk's office. And I was there for 15 years. And so I pretty much grew up there. And everything that I understood and the inner workings, I started as a deputy clerk, which is, I understand, different than this deputy clerk position. But I started in the indexing office, which is just somebody in a back room putting, specific pieces of data in from the official records. And I moved up through the ranks until I became a senior supervisor there, and then got more involved in the inner workings and the management side of government. And I liked it. I liked the structure of it. I liked serving the citizens. So it kind of spoke to both, I'm a Libra, so maybe that it kind of spoke to both sides of me. But I like that structure. And when I went from that environment to cabinets, it was like I had been taken from a normal world and put into somewhere I didn't even speak the language. It was like learning a whole new language for me. And so that was a bit of a challenge, but that's what appeals to me about this environment. I get it, that everything is governed by, everything that we did at the clerk's office was either governed by clerk policy or Florida statutes. And so that's just kind of how I learned to roll. That's how I was brought up in that in that area.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Emmerich.
I'm good, thank you.
I am good too. I want to thank you so much for being here and for coming. Vice Mayor's going to give a little disclaimer here.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you all
And I
so
know
much.
it is very intimidating.
It is, but you all put me at ease, and I appreciate that.
And I
wanna
could
thank
tell that
for
you were getting more at ease as you talked more, and I appreciate that too. So, just because this interview was short, we're required to ask this exact same questions
Okay.
of every candidate. So the length of the interview, please don't judge how well you did or how poorly you may have done, because I don't think you've done poorly, but we have to ask the exact same question. So basically, the length of it is based on your answers.
Gotcha.
So thank you very much, and I guess we'll be in touch, and hopefully have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you, and you all
Thank
do
you
the
very
same.
much. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for what you do at the Homeless Coalition.
Thank you very much. I love doing it. I love doing it. It's good
Great
stuff.
place.
It's good stuff. Did you go to Mistletoe?
I did not. I hear it was fantastic, though.
It was a pleasure seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So are we good to get started on our discussion? Minutes.
I'm ready to start.
I'm ready to start.
All right. Well, let's get started. My thought, and you guys tell me what you think, is can we kind of give out our top two? Would that work for you guys? We can
Yeah,
give out
that'd
our
be
top
fine.
two, and then we'll discuss those top two. I have them listed from A, B, C, D, because I didn't want there to be any specific number on them. So I have Heather Taylor as A. It's kind of in the order that we did it. Rebecca Clifford as B, Norman Fitzgerald as C, and Linda Simmons as D. So
I'm sorry, say your ABCs again.
it's just in the same order that we did them. Heather Taylor is A, Rebecca Clifford is B, Norman Fitzgerald is C, Linda Simmons is D. I will start over here to my right, and give me a couple of letters there, sir. Your number one.
My number one was Heather Taylor.
Okay. Number two.
My number two was Linda Simmons.
Okay.
My number three was Rebecca Clifford. And my number four was Norman Fitzgerald.
All right. Okay, so Commissioner Luke, if you can give me your top two.
I had the same order as
Okay.
Commissioner Emmerich. It was a toss-up between the second and the third.
Exactly here, too.
Yeah, they were almost a tie. One has supervising experience, and the other didn't have as much, but yeah, they were pretty much a toss-up.
Okay, Vice Mayor.
My first pick was Taylor. I think she has the experience that the department is looking for and needs. No offense to you, Miss Katie, please. There was no hidden meaning behind that. She already has her certification and she's already pursuing the next level of certification. That was quite impressive to me. As far as second, third, and fourth, I was really a toss-up. And I have to tell you that after hearing the interview, Miss Simmons was actually my last pick based on paper. She moved up to my number 2 spot. She interviewed quite well to me. And I think she has a very broad personality that would fit into the department. Because that's something else we have to consider is how well will this person work in the department. My toss-up was an equal between Clifford and Fitzgerald. I do not have one preference over the other. I think I could reach a preference if necessary, but that would require a little bit more conversation with them that we cannot have. So.
Sounds like we're all exactly on the same page.
Person as number 1.
Because I have the number 1, like Commissioner McDowell. Ms. Simmons, because of her documentation, was a little further down on my list, but I enjoyed the interview. The interview went real well. So she would have been my second, but it looks like to me that we all have picked a number 1.
And see, I didn't find the paperwork on Simmons to be bad at all.
No, I didn't either.
In fact,
Mine was just kind of the time frame between.
Right,
Yeah,
from
but
where
it's-
she was
yeah.
with the
Yeah, mine was mostly
other
the time
department
frame.
was almost 10, 15 years
Yeah.
ago.
yes, but it was about 15 years of experience. And then because of the recession, lost that
Exactly.
position, had to go find something else.
Exactly.
And I understand that, when you lose a position in one field and then you transfer into another field, I can totally understand that.
And you don't want to be
But her
bouncing around.
testing- Her testing and stuff was
Spot on.
top,
Yeah, yeah, that's-
top. I mean, her testing was top. So, no, her backup material to me was fine. With saying that, Heather Taylor has, everything even lives in the city.
The only thing that I want to bring up about Ms. Taylor's application, she does list her minimum compensation to be $14,000 higher than what we were offering. I know that when we offered the position, we put it out at $50,000, correct, City Manager?
Ma'am.
And she's requesting a minimum compensation of $64,000. I don't know if she will go down $14,000 to accept a position here. I don't know if that had been discussed in either the interview or with HR. I don't know if they can shed any light on that.
I'll ask HR to comment and they can tell you what was discussed during the meeting, but I will tell you just so that you all know, the position was budgeted at a significantly higher salary than the $50,000 that you ultimately put out to offer the position as. So if your concern is budgetary, that's not an issue because it was budgeted at what the previous deputy city clerk was making. So you do have the flexibility. As far as what was discussed, yes, you all said to put it out at 50. That's what we did. Well, if anything was discussed, I'll let Deborah Hope let you know what was discussed in the interviews because I was not in those.
Deborah Hope, Human Resources Manager. We did not discuss salary at the interview. I know that you discussed the $50,000 range. However, when someone brings experience to the table, it would not be unusual to go above the minimum because the base salary is supposed to be someone that's coming in with the bare bones of experience. So
Thank you for
if
that.
that helps you with your discussion.
Do you know how it was advertised? Did we advertise it with CMC or whatever those certifications are for city clerk? Did we advertise that that is something we were looking for, or was that kind of left off?
I believe it was preferred.
Unfortunately, the job posting wasn't part of the backup, and I didn't even think to ask for it.
We can look that up for you to see, but I believe off the top of my head that was preferred. Can you get the job description or the posting? Thank you. Ms. McDade will go get that for us.
If we're going to offer the position, we may also want to put a second in, offer it first and then a second, Mayor, only because if she doesn't want to take it at that salary, at whatever our salary is that we are going to offer it, that we have a second one waiting in the wings as a possible, just to help expedite getting the deputy city clerk position filled, instead of starting the whole process again.
Sure. Sure, absolutely. Looks like we all have an agreement on one of them. Do we want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion if you like.
Yep.
Well, I'd still like to discuss
Yeah.
salary, please,
Okay,
before
yeah,
we make a
absolutely. Go ahead.
motion. I don't blink an eye at the salary that she's requesting, and the biggest reason is because of our last deputy clerks came in higher than that. So this is underneath even what was hired, and she has more credential and experience in that. So I don't blink an eye at paying $64,000.
I'm going to agree with Jill, or Commissioner Luke, I'm sorry, because she's already adapted to our system. She knows it.
Exactly.
She's coming through the door as a usable tool.
Yep.
She's got the experience. She's ready to go. So I look at it that way. We're not putting tons of money into training. She has that already. She has an awesome history with her life in the military and all of her work experience. I think that would behoove us to go forward with that as well. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
I have the information that you requested. The minimum experience was graduation from high school and supplemented by college coursework, 5 years of experience, and Florida relevant experience. The certification, the CMC, is the ability to obtain. Does not say that they have to have it, so then that would make her above the minimum.
And maybe city attorney, do we have in our charter the requirement, I know she lives here in Northport, she has to stay in Northport, but do we have a requirement for deputy city clerk to attain any additional certifications? I don't think so either. I just want to kind of make sure so that when I make the motion.
While he's looking that up, I just want to point out that, to keep in mind, with your motion, this is a negotiation that we'll be entering with her. It's a contract that we brought forward to you all, so it's typically what we've done with all of the charter positions is the commission is authorizing negotiation to start. Because as you know, with the other 3 contracts, there's a bunch of provisions in there that have to be worked out by both parties. It's not a single party contract, so both parties have to agree to it. And I just want to make sure that all of that is kept in mind when however the motion is you give, it's typically you move to authorize negotiations, and then a contract is brought back with those terms kept in mind.
To the commission, the contract's brought back?
Yep, commission approves the contract.
Other than regular city requirement.
Nothing else? Okay. I'll make a motion, Mayor, if you'd like. And just so you guys know, I was going to make the original motion to be at the 64,000 mark because of her experience. I think that is very fair. So I'll make a motion to offer Ms. Heather Taylor the position as Deputy City Clerk at the compensation of $64,000 a year for the city manager and HR. and the city attorney to work on the negotiations and bring back a contract for commission approval within 30 days or sooner.
We'll have you a contract as soon as possible. And we have a template that we've done for the previous city clerk, deputy city clerk, myself, and the city attorney, that they're all, at this point, fairly similar. So we'll bring, and that's the one question I would want is, do you want this contract based on the previous deputy city clerk's contract, which is kind of where we've gone through with all of them? I'm assuming you want it based in the same template as the other three are done.
We walk through like.
Yeah, the
nobody's
deputy
business.
city clerk, I think, is the first
We
one
vetted
we
through.
really.
Yeah, we vetted the crap
Yeah.
out of that deal.
That's just what I want to make sure is in line with the other three contracts that are currently in existence. And we'll get you one. I don't think this will take long at all.
I second the motion.
A motion on the floor by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Anything to that, Vice Mayor?
After we're finished with this motion, I do have a couple others that I'll make.
Nothing more.
Okay, let's take the vote. That was approved 4-0.
So I'll make maybe HR is going to have to help me with this motion because I'm not, or city attorney, to offer it to Ms. Simmons because she had 3 votes as the number 2 person. If Ms. Taylor can't or won't accept the offer or negotiations based on salary or whatever reasons, that we can then just jump right in and offer it to Ms. Simmons.
From my perspective, that's a will of the commission of, do you want to offer it to a backup? If you do, you can make a motion that should negotiations fall through, either party back out to start negotiations immediately with whoever you wanted to as your second. And I would like to have that direction anyway from you all is, what do you want us to do should this fall through with the first one?
All right, so I'll make a motion to offer as a backup the position of Deputy City Clerk to Miss Linda Simmons at a salary of $50,000 because she would then be required to get her required certifications. For the city manager, city attorney, and HR to start negotiations with her if Ms. Taylor's falls through.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor by Vice Mayor McDowell, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Vice Mayor?
I think it's clear based on the conversation.
I think the 50,000 is adequate for that particular negotiation because of the lack of experience. And she actually was putting down 45,000 to start, so it's actually
Yeah,
offering a.
We
but
put a
in-
minimum of
exactly,
50, so we have to,
can't go under.
yeah, we can't go
Exactly,
under.
that was my thinking. So I'm in agreement. Thank you.
Anybody else to that? No?
No.
Let's take the vote. That was approved 4-0.
One more.
Okay, one more.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that all of the other remaining candidates be informed by the end of business today that the position was offered to somebody else, and to thank them on behalf of the commission for their time and for putting in the application.
I don't know how you can really do that. I mean, you can thank them for coming in and acknowledge, but until somebody receives or accepts a contract, I don't know as you could tell them it was awarded to somebody else. You may end up with 3 of them backing out. You know, they
And
may have
that's
applied,
possible, yeah.
they may have applied somewhere else and 3 of them, and you're left with the 4th one. So I don't know as you can
I'd say maybe
state that.
do that as we move forward as, you know.
Well, they have to know that they're not being considered for the job.
Well, they might be
They might
considered.
be in the
You
end.
never know. We don't know what the.
But if they're
future's gonna
bringing
bring.
back a contract ASAP, when they come back, they're going to tell us, or even in an email that says, you know, so-and-so backed out, so-and-so backed out, what do we need to do? I'm assuming, and we'll have.
But
The
we're-
question I would say I would have for you all is, should neither of the first 2 accept the position,
we
would
want-
you want to go with the 3rd or the 4th? The answer to that is no, then we'll notify at least the other 2 that we've gone in a different direct. We have a standard letter we send to applicants that will notify that are not being considered. If you do want to keep them in the
At
pool.
this time, not being considered.
What if we were to make a motion on a third for that very reason? Would you want to do that?
I think that's
No.
kind of,
No.
I'm sorry, I'm bordering on this is insulting then.
Right.
I'm just putting it out there.
I just need to know, I mean, typically, it's if you're not gonna go, if it's one or two, or 1, 2, and then if neither one of those take it, we're gonna wanna put it back out
Right, that's.
for another search.
That was my question to you
That's
guys.
what I'm looking for. If that's the case,
Do you
then
want-
we'll notify those two.
And then it would be a whole new 4, correct? We would
Right.
You get a whole new group, yep.
get a whole new group at that. And those two, let's say
Can
they're the bottom,
reapply.
might be in that 4 again. You know what I'm saying?
All right, so the motion that I started, I'll just go ahead and withdraw it, and I'll make a motion to, trying to think how to phrase it. If the two, Ms. Taylor and Ms. Simmons, do not accept the position, to put it back out through HR for re-advertisement for the position, and to please thank Ms. Clifford and Mr. Fitzgerald for applying, and stay tuned. Kind of thing, I don't know.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
There's another, why not just let them know that the commission had made some decisions
Right.
and that final notification will be coming to them shortly. Thank you for applying. And then when you have somebody accept the contract,
Then
then,
we'll-
then you notify
Then you
them.
notify everybody.
Exactly.
Once you have the final acceptance.
No,
That's exactly what I would say to do.
That's what I'm thinking.
we made 2 job offers, one to Ms. Taylor first, and then to Ms. Simmons second.
But that's all it is an offer.
Correct, but they can accept it or they not, but these other two applicants do have a right to know that either they're still in the running and they're not left hanging. That's so grossly unfair.
I guess if what we're saying is, if these two back out, we're just gonna put it back out there, then that's exactly what we need to do. Because
If
if,
that's what we're gonna do,
yeah,
then
I
we
mean,
would
if that's
have
exactly,
to.
that's what the motion says, so if the motion carries, then I would say that's exactly what needs to happen, since we're gonna go for a whole new batch of applicants.
And we'll send them the standard letter that we have. We always, like I say, we notify people when they're not being considered any further. So if that's what you all want to do, I think the motion is fine. As far as what we'll do is we'll send out the letter to the two that, we're pursuing. I mean, I don't know the exact language that we've always used. I've seen the letter. Basically, we're pursuing a different path. And we'll notify the 2 that weren't and the 2 that are. We'll start the negotiation with the 1. Unfortunately, the second one is kind of left waiting to see.
I was gonna say, you still have this. That's
Nature
why,
has to be.
that's why I say just let them know that there's negotiations going on and, I mean, if
That's
they
the old
accept-
saying, no news is good news too, sometimes,
I'd be more than happy to call all of the applicants and explain the process. I think that would be
That's probably a
easiest.
better-
And the
Yeah.
2 candidates that we're not making the offer to are internal, so generally, if it's an internal applicant, I would pick up the phone and talk to them face to face, talk to them.
That's probably,
So is the motion okay as it is, city manager, or do you need it restated?
I think we're fine. We're going to notify everybody. As long as you're okay with it, not necessarily needing to be a letter, we will communicate with them all today. I think that was the intent of what you wanted, is to make sure that everybody got communicated with.
That
at the
is
end of today.
exactly the intent.
If you're okay with that, you could withdraw your motion and just have a consensus that we contact all 4 candidates and update them on the status of it today.
withdrawing the motion. Vice Mayor is withdrawing our motion, so we're gonna take a consensus that, what was that consensus? That we're
All
gonna-
4 candidates be contacted
Yeah, all 4
today.
candidates, yep.
Status.
All 4 candidates be contacted today about the status of their situation.
Now, do you need direction, though, to go out to bid, to re-advertise if neither Ms. Taylor or Ms. Simmons? Do you need that direction
That would,
to re-advertise immediately if neither one makes it through negotiations?
I don't
That's-
think I don't think we need it right at this
Since you
point.
have a vacancy, so you'd have to fill it.
Robinson's.
It's gonna be a little bit while we go through this process, because we have two people that we'll potentially be negotiating with. But I think the message is very clear that if neither one of them accepts it, to put it back out. So that's up to you all if you want to take a consensus to do that, but I'm pretty sure we got that message anyway.
All right. Mr. Image, do you know your name?
Oh, I'm good with that, yeah.
Vice Mayor?
Yep.
And I'm okay with that, so we have a consensus to do that. Is there anything, no public comment? Have any commission communications? Commissioner Luke? Vice Mayor?
Nothing at this time. Thank you very much, and thank you, staff, for your help on this.
Commissioner? Mayor has nothing. Administrative, legal? Nope. City manager? Sure.
Thank you.
Let's call it a day. We are adjourned.